Adam Schiff, the congressman from California, who has spent the last year and a half telling you that unauthorized violations of Capitol space are a coup, Adam Schiff illegally gave producers from CBS access to the Capitol. And then the group, which includes the show's senior producer, a director, a comedian, and a writer, remained in the Longworth House office building after hours. And the point of them being there was for them to harass sitting members of Congress. Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lauren Boebert. U.S. Capitol Police say they got a call about a disturbance at about 8:30 p.m. They told us, quote, responding officers observed 7 individuals unescorted and without congressional ID in a 6th-floor hallway. Officers then arrested them and charged them with unlawful entry into the Capitol complex. Now, that's the exact same charge that many January 6th defendants face. We'll just get right to it. It is likely that some members of Stephen Colbert's team will be held in solitary confinement for a year and a half without being charged.
Hey guys, Maz Jobrani here. So this week, Tucker Carlson goes on television to complain about Stephen Colbert's production team, who was in Congress filming some comedy sketches, and they finished their interviews, and then later in the evening, they were still in the hallways doing some B-roll, filming some stuff. Capitol Police show up. They arrest them because they're not supposed to be there. They don't have the permits to be there at that time. Long story short, Tucker Carlson goes on his show and says that Stephen Colbert's crew were part of an insurrection. That's the biggest BS ever. And Tucker Carlson knows it's BS, but he says it to his followers because he is trying to do a false equivalency to the actual insurrection that happened on January 6th. What is wrong with these people that they will not admit that the people who tried to attack the Capitol and to overthrow democracy were part of an insurrection? Tucker sarcastically says that Colbert's crew is now going to be held in solitary confinement for a year and a half until the chips fall where they will, et cetera, because he's trying to refer to the fact that some of the people who attacked the Capitol on January 6th were held in not good circumstances. They attacked the Capitol. They tried to overthrow the government. What do you want people to do? What kind of white privilege mentality do you have where you think that if you attack the Capitol, you should be treated with kid gloves? You should not be treated with kid gloves. You tried to overthrow a democratically elected president because you thought he wasn't elected that way, because you were led by the former president, Donald Trump, to believe that the election was stolen, when it really wasn't stolen. Even Trump knows it wasn't stolen. But you were dumb enough to follow Trump into battle and try to overthrow a democratically elected president. Meanwhile, Stephen Colbert's crew was in the Capitol doing a comedy bit with Triumph, the insult comic dog. It's Robert Smigel's character. It's hilarious. And they were trying to do a comedy bit. So I'll tell you what, Tucker Carlson, if a bunch of Proud Boys and Oath Keepers were to go into Congress and try to do a comedy bit, they're not funny, they're not going to. They were going to go do a comedy bit, and in the process, they got in trouble because they were in an area they weren't supposed to be in, then yes, I agree with you. They should let them go. They were trying to do a comedy bit. They had gotten permits earlier to come in. They'd done their interviews, and they were on their way out later in the evening when they were trying to catch some B-roll, and they were where they weren't supposed to be. Sure, let them go. However, the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers, right-wing extremists, were actually trying to overthrow the government. There was actually people that died that day on January 6th, including police, because of the things that happened on January 6th. They would have killed Mike Pence and Nancy Pelosi and AOC and anybody else they got their hands on. They would not have done comedy bits. They would have killed them. At this point, Tucker Carlson has become the major propagandist for the right-wing extremists. He's trying to excuse what they did on January 6th. He is the Joseph Goebbels of right-wing extremists. Joseph Goebbels was the propagandist for the Nazi Party. That's what Tucker has become for right-wing extremists. He's just looking for excuses. Why can't you just admit that what happened on January 6th was wrong? The people who attacked were wrong. The people who organized it were wrong. Trump was wrong. Everybody involved was wrong. You knew the election was lost. You had other things you could argue. You could say, hey, you know, the Democrats passed some laws to make it easier to vote because of COVID. I get it. Go. Challenge that in courts. By the way, they challenged it in courts. They lost in courts. So at some point, as Americans, we need to agree if the courts, even judges that were appointed by Donald Trump, have said that the election was lost, then we all got to agree it was lost and move on. But Trump didn't, and now you've got Joseph Goebbels of the right-wing extremists, Mr. Tucker Carlson, just coming up with a bunch of BS. So you got to stop it, Tucker. It's going to lead to violence. It's going to lead to violence. Fox needs to stop this guy. Whoever's there, the advertisers, got to stop advertising. This guy, we all know he's scum. But when he's trying to do something like saying, like, look, these guys who were a comedy team that were arrested for being somewhere where they weren't supposed to be, and compare that to the guys who attacked the Capitol, it doesn't even make sense. They attacked the Capitol. The Colbert team showed up with a dog puppet. How do you compare that?